Welcome, everyone, to Vision Untethered Conversations with Inspirational Leaders. My name is Jill Simons, founder of Savvy Strategic Partners. We are a full service, dedicated leadership team of fractional executives. We are executing vision, increasing business value, and helping founder owners realize freedom. Today's guest is Erica Rooney, a renowned leadership coach, speaker, and author dedicated to empowering individuals and organizations to achieve their fullest potential. Erica brings a unique blend of expertise in leadership development, team dynamics, and personal growth. Erica, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have you.
Girl, I am so excited. This is an amazing, amazing way to end my week.
Yes, that's strategically placed on Fridays. Podcasts are for Fridays for sure.
I love a
Everyone's
podcasting Friday.
we're all in a better mood. We're ready for the weekend, putting the week behind us. It's good. Good things.
I'm here
Yeah.
for it.
All right. So, would love to know first and foremost what your purpose, cause, and passion is. What brought you to your specific purpose and what you do today?
Oh my goodness. My purpose is to get more women into positions of power and keep them there, right?
Mm,
I always focus on gender equality. That's my purpose and my passion. And I work with teams, and this is not just a woman problem. It's not just a female problem. It is an all team problem, right? So when I talk to people, it's not
yeah.
just about women's groups. I love to be in front of entire organizations talking about this issue with so many people because I'm a
Mm,
mom. I've got a 10-year-old son and a 6-year-old girl, right? So what am I supposed to
right.
tell my son? Sit down, it's not his time to shine? Like that's not fair. And so I'm very passionate about this topic of gender equality and getting more women into positions of power because it is
Mm.
equally as important for both my daughter, but also my son.
Just like any broken system, right? It's a system-wide issue which entails all of us collectively, whether it's equality and racism or those that are marginalized or gender. It needs to involve everybody, right? It's not just one-sided, and that's why we still are where we are, I think, in
Yeah. Say
economy
it louder
and
for the people in the
profession.
back.
Yeah, like this should be. I love that we're talking about this too because it's in good timing where, I'm learning a lot about the movement and astrology right now and the energy shift in the universe and us stepping into what is 2025 coined the year of, and, starting the era of the divine feminine. That should be an empowerment for
Did not
men.
know.
Yeah, okay. So we'll have to exchange info on that too. So I was telling my husband this there as well. We're raising three daughters, right? So that is very much alive and very much a feminist approach and foundation in our family because we're raising three women in a world where still, women in positions of leadership and whether it's corporate, whether it's entrepreneurial worlds, are still not rising to the level of opportunity, right? And I was just telling this to my husband too, just the other day, and he's like, "Well, I'm excited about this divine feminine. Like it is something that men can also and should also own and take part of and facilitate as well. It's their time to shine, right? How do we all collectively change and make better?" For
Yeah.
everybody. It's not a
Yes.
deficit, right? Like men are not at a deficit if women have more opportunity, if women are treated equally. So
Yeah, and
it's
like
our time.
just to talk about that for a second. Like my
Hmm.
story is I came out of corporate America like a lot of people do, but I'm a very
Hmm.
ambitious person, very growth minded, and I was in fitness and wellness for a very long time. And I
Okay.
loved that. Was very passionate about helping people, but hit my
Mm-hmm.
first glass ceiling probably in my
Hmm.
late 20s where they were like if this is what you want to do, there is no more room for growth for you, right? Because when you're even though I was working for a large fortune company, right? Like Verizon was my company. They were like, no, that's the top. That's as far as you can go in that area. So I started to think about what could I do next? And that's what I pivoted into HR. And within 4 or 5 years of starting in HR, I went from being a entry level HR business partner to a chief people officer in a tech company at the height of COVID. And it was just insane. It was crazy. And when I look back, right, because hindsight is a gift that we will all have one day, I don't think I even realized back then how much more I was hustling and trying to prove myself and trying to show my worth than
Yeah.
all of the other men that I was with. Right. And I don't think it was intentional. And I don't think, that was my goal. But now that I
Hmm.
can put some distance between what that was,
Mm,
and, being at the C-suite, that's a position of privilege. It's a position of power. And it gave me that ability to look back and see that. And that is when I really said, like, I don't want that for the
yeah.
other women behind me. I was
Mm,
leading a team of all women,
mhm.
HR, right? Mostly female
Yep.
dominated industry, in a male
Hmm.
dominated world, being the tech industry. And I watched them all have lower pay, right?
Hmm.
Not be seen as valuable. And again, these were all these like hidden biases that people's had. And so
Yep.
that's when I really started to uncover a lot of the problems. But my issue was also, and we already talked about a little bit, the systems. And this number that just bamboozled me was the fact that it was going to be 132 years before we reached pay equity. And I
Mm,
was like, well, I'm going to be dead. And my daughter isn't even going to be alive. Like, who are we even doing this for? And I can't sit around and wait for that. And I
yeah.
didn't, right? Like I outpaced my husband. I started growing and climbing, but I also burnt myself the hell out because I was
Yeah.
always trying to overcompensate and
Right.
overprove and overshow. And still, I
Yep.
was mansplained too. I once had a
Mhm.
peer tell me where my company's headquartered was located in case I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
Excuse
Good
me?
to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like those are the
Uh-huh.
things that we're up against. And
Yeah.
it's just a tiny indiscretion, but it's like a death by a thousand cuts, and those things keep adding up.
Mhm.
And so that's
Yeah.
when I really said something has to change. And I really worked on building my business in the background while still showing up as a chief people officer, because by
Hmm.
that point, I was the primary breadwinner. I couldn't just step away.
Hmm.
And that's when I really created this whole message of glass ceilings and sticky floors. And your listeners are probably like, well, you're a mom.
Yeah.
Or are you talking about
Yeah.
cotton candy and grape juice on your floor? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
No,
Tell us
not
more
those
about
sticky
that.
floors.
Right.
But the sticky floors are the limiting beliefs and toxic behaviors that keep you stuck, right? They show up like
Mm,
imposter syndrome, perfectionism, fear, burnout, worrying
yes.
about what other people will think. Pretty privilege is one, right? When people start inviting
Oh.
you into the room because of how you look, not because of what is in your brain and
Oh.
what you need to do with that power and
Totally.
what you can. Yeah. I mean, it's just all sorts of things because for me, all of those issues, those limiting beliefs and toxic behaviors were something that I could directly control, right?
Hmm.
I can control if I raise my hand in a meeting and speak up. I can
Hmm.
control if I negotiate a higher pay. I can control flexibility in my role. Things I
Yeah.
cannot control are all the other men around me and what they think.
Hmm.
I cannot control
Right.
society, and I can't control it's going to take 132 years for the pay gap to close. So for
Exactly.
me, it just felt so important for women and girls and men too,
Hmm.
right? Because they experience these things as well, to realize that they are not helpless. They have
Right.
so much more control over their thoughts, their beliefs,
Hmm.
and their actions, which will dictate their future, that they don't
Hmm.
need to be sidetracked by all the BS that
Right.
is all the
Yeah.
toxic masculinity and mess that's around us?
Exactly.
So
And I
that's where
think,
the whole
uh,
concept of glass ceilings and sticky
yeah,
floors.
love that.
I think we had a
Yeah.
lag.
Because yeah, we can break through the ceilings, right? There's the things that are within our control and without our control, and we're blind to often the very things within us that are holding us back. Moving aside from the glass ceiling and what's kind of been put as a veil there, we own half of that perception, this lie about what's actually holding us back. And we tend to do that to ourselves just because of the way it's been shaped and modeled before us. So I love that. That's
Yes.
amazing.
What's
Um,
also super interesting, sorry, I think there's a little lag that we have, but we can cut
oh,
those
all good.
out.
Right. Perfect. No worries.
I think what's also super interesting about this work is that a lot of the things, the sticky floors that I talk about in this book, are driven, they're all internal, but they carry a little bit of shame and embarrassment. Like, we don't want to
Mm,
talk about how we struggle with imposter syndrome. We don't want to talk about how we don't feel confident because we want to feel confident. And if I say that, you're going to
mhm.
think I'm not confident. And so there's almost like this little cloak of shame that covers a lot of these sticky floors, which then only holds women back further. And so when you can kind of remove that shame, which is by
Hmm.
talking about it, it's by finding community of other people who are struggling with those same things, and you bring
Hmm.
light to those
Yeah.
sticky floors, is when you can break free from them.
When we shed light on it, it's power, right? That's where the power comes from, is calling it out, saying it as it is, admitting that humility, because we all are ultimately human and share in that regardless of gender. That's great. What would you say then? I'm curious what your take is on the burnout you talked about and the exhaustion from climbing that. Would you say in those moments that you were, or through that journey, right? Not moments, but it was over the course of several years, probably, that you were fully in your feminine power? Or were you seen and respected and growing because you were being more masculine?
Ooh, what a great question. I think it probably ebbed and flowed. Like I have
Mm,
this gift of being able to read rooms really well.
hmm.
And it's a gift, but also a curse because I'm very good at being a chameleon and blending in. And so I
Hmm.
can easily walk into a room and almost assume what kind of person I need to be and what levels I need to have. How much energy, how much excitement, how much feminine, how much masculine. When do I need to step up and take control? When do I need to shift back to be the most
Hmm.
strategic? And this
Yeah.
has a ton of advantages, which is I can play in any room on any ball field and be well received, but it also means that I can be very agreeable, not necessarily authentic.
That's a good self-realization. Are you
Took a
familiar
while.
with yeah, takes time. We don't learn it young in life, that's for sure. Are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yes,
Okay. What's your number?
9.
A nine. Yeah, okay. That makes it. My husband's a nine. Yeah, just seeing multiple sides. So when you said that, right, being able to see multiple perspectives and kind of chameleon in the room, you can see things very multifaceted and adjust according. You're a peacekeeper. You keep the peace and you're the instigator as well, like more, 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 more. And at least that's the nine I know really well. I'm like, yep, that sounds okay. I love that. Sounds familiar.
And it sounds really accurate for me and also in my personal and professional life.
Yep. Awesome. I love that. I love nines. So, gosh, yeah, I love what you're doing and the work that you're bringing to the world. What is a pivotal failure for you that you've encountered in this journey, and how did addressing it shape your growth strategy?
So many learning moments, right? And I think
Yeah.
when I look back, I think the biggest failure that I had was not trusting my gut early enough.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think that had I leaned into that more,
Hmm.
that I would have had greater success while being peaceful inside, right? Inside my
Yeah.
heart, inside my mind,
Yeah.
versus just this constant rat race of go, go, go. And so when I stepped out of corporate and I went all in on my own thing, I was very careful that I wanted to trust my gut. And actually, I can't believe I just remembered this, but trust is my word of the year because I want to trust the nudges that I get from the universe. I want to trust my intuition. I want to trust
Hmm.
myself and the business
Hmm.
moves I make. And I want to trust that if I make the wrong move, that I'll easily be able to pivot to make the right move. But that
Yes.
means that I have to get real still and real quiet. And in case you haven't told, I have a lot of energy. So that is a challenge for me. But
Yeah.
what I've kind of instilled into my practice is just making sure that I have quiet time at the beginning of the day and
Hmm.
really creating my life and schedule as my dream. And so, what I did when I stepped out of corporate and I had that clean slate calendar, I said, I'm going to create my life by design. Like, what do I want
Yeah.
my life to look like?
Yep.
And I'm very ambitious, very driven by my passion. So, obviously, that has to be in there. But it now includes slower mornings until the frenetic chaos of getting my kids out the door for school. But then we calm back
Mhm.
down.
Yep.
And then I stop working at 3 o'clock every single day now. I don't take meetings. I don't do anything
Hmm.
because then I close my laptop and I can be full on present mom mode. and
Yeah.
allowing for that true division, where I'm all
Hmm.
in on my goals, myself, my dreams, my work, and then I
Yeah.
go all in on my life and my family. It's
Hmm.
actually been really great for my business. It's been great for my family and it's been great for my mental health. Like I don't feel like I'm constantly juggling 87 plates all at the same time.
Right. You're intentional about, you spoke a little bit to your energy. Like when and where are you the most energized and where that energy flows? If we're lacking the awareness of that, how can we harness that to be our best in any of the roles and the multifaceted, ways that we show up, whether it's at work, with our clients, with our kids, with our partners, right? So the fact that you recognize that and designed how you can best channel your energy to show up the best in all of the roles you play is amazing. Yeah.
And it's so critical that we do that
Hmm.
because it's especially as entrepreneurs, especially as people running our own businesses and things like that, like this, like you want to say yes to everything because you don't know what that yes could lead to. You're like, "Oh, I could meet so many
Hmm.
people and what if I did this?" And
Hmm.
I mean, there's a little bit of FOMO sometimes when you don't do those things for whatever
Sure.
reason. But what I have found is that, I know my threshold now and I'm respecting that
Absolutely.
threshold and I'm recognizing that there's another day tomorrow to get
Hmm.
it right or to put it in there. And,
Hmm.
it's all a learning process. The other week I had like back-to-back events and it was really important for me to do all of them. So I wouldn't do this any other way. But I was exhausted. I was so mentally drained after. And then, of course, I take that out on everything else, but it took me
Yeah.
longer to recover from that. And so it's
Hmm.
just about building that time in. Like, if that was really important for me to do all of those events, build in that longer recovery time versus if it was like event, recover, event, recover.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So important. So important. What are some of the indicators for you as a business owner or those that you work with that they're too deeply tethered to the day to day? And how is that limiting their ability to scale as a business and as an
Yes.
individual?
The biggest thing that I see is that they
Hmm.
are too just attached to being in the business instead of
Uh-huh.
being on the business. They are reactive, they're not proactive, right? They're constantly putting out fires, which means they
Yeah.
can never get ahead. And it can be really hard for people, especially leaders and people who are growing to pull themselves back out because we have this fear that if we don't interject ourselves, it's not
Uh-huh.
going to go well, right? They're going to fail.
Yeah.
So what? Let them
Hmm.
fail.
Or it's
Let
not
them
going to be done
learn.
right, or it's not going to be done my way, or it's, yeah.
There's
What,
all of those things. But
exactly.
that is the one that when I'm working with all my clients that I see the most because they will come to me with also what I call ping pong brain, where they are just like, this
Mm,
is going on, and your brain ball is bouncing at all the different things that you have going on. You can't focus. And if you can't
hmm.
focus, you're not going to be able to take big strategic action, which is what is needed to scale.
Exactly. Yeah. Spot on for sure. Can you pinpoint a specific experience where you have felt trapped by your own business and what strategies you implemented to create space for growth and scalability?
Actually, this was really interesting. So it wasn't too long ago that I signed up for a course in Google Analytics because I was number one, let's be clear. I hate numbers. I hate data. Like I want to have it, but I just want to know it's there. I don't really want to do anything with it? And
Okay.
so I
Yeah.
recognized I need to know more about Google Analytics and what's going on and what's converting. And while I'm in
Mhm.
this course, right, because I'm so busy in the day to day and doing my podcast and doing the book stuff and all this, while I'm going through this course, I realized I didn't have a way to make money while I slept? And it
Mm,
was kind of this aha moment for me that a lot of my revenue was coming from coaching clients and from speaking, which is fantastic, but it
yeah.
requires me all the time. And also, let's
Yes.
be clear, nobody's going to hire a speaker or an executive coach without actually talking to them first. They're not just going to go to a great sales page and be like, yep, that's my girl. Pick her, you
Right.
know? And
Right.
so I started to calculate in my head, like, how many hours was I spending on all of these meetings that maybe didn't even result in a client? And I was like,
Hmm.
how? And so that's when I kind of stepped away and I was like, I need to think of something that embodies everything I want to do,
Yeah.
bringing more women into positions of power, providing this place for them, being able to coach them and guide them. And I completely took a total left turn and instead launched an entire community. And I actually said, I'm not going to take any more private coaching clients. I'm going to go all
Mm-hmm.
in on creating a community. It's called Her Collective. It's all
Mm-hmm.
for women, but it allows me to spend the same amount of time face to face, right? Away from my family, away from my kids, away from my cozy, comfy couch where I can click clack all day away, rather than
Mm-hmm.
all these one-off coaching clients that also get a lot of
Yeah.
hand holding because they're one-on-one clients. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I actually removed myself, right, and grew myself, because here I am taking a course, I had that light bulb moment that I
Mm-hmm.
needed to be different and I needed to do something that was strategic, not something that was instant cash. And so I
Mm-hmm.
got set to work and I worked on building this community up. And guess what? When I soft launched it,
Mm-hmm.
$10,000 in revenue in 1 month. Done. Check.
Mm-hmm.
But that was only because I
Awesome.
removed myself
Right.
out of being in the business.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah. So what leadership misstep throughout this journey taught you the most about aligning that vision, right? You're talking a lot about, okay, the vision's shifting from how do I provide the most value at scale to actually grow, aligning that with execution. How do you apply that lesson in order to move the business forward?
Yeah, my secret tool for moving the business forward is do something I can't undo, right? Because we can so often come up with these great visions and ideas, and then we don't
Mhm.
execute on them because we're not quite sure where to start. We don't know what to do, who to involve. We're scared that if we ask someone to pay
Mhm.
us for something and it's not top notch, like it's
Mhm.
worthless. Like I know that's a big fear of mine. And I think the
Yeah.
leadership misstep that I used to take in the past is stopping before I was even started, right? Because of the fear, because of lack of knowledge, And I was like, well, I can't do that. I
Yes.
don't know how to start a podcast. I can't write a book. I don't know how to publish. But if you do the thing that cannot be undone, and I'll give you an example in a minute, then you got
Yeah.
just got to go ahead and do it. But two big
Okay.
examples for me in my business where it came to like, you can't unring the bell was I have my own podcast, the Glass Ceiling and Sticky Floor podcast, and I wanted to get
Mhm.
that out to the world for so many years, but I had so many
Yeah.
fears about what would people think? Is
Hmm.
my boss going to think I'm working? Like, am I going to be in trouble for this? Are people even going to like it? Oh my God, they're going to talk about me. And then you know what I did?
Yeah.
I just said, well, yeah. And so I sat down one day and I took an action that I knew I could not undo. And that was emailing 10 of my closest girlfriends and telling them, I want to start a podcast, but I have these fears against it. So I'm telling you so you hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Now
And
they're
here
in
you
it.
are.
Now
Yeah.
they're in it. And now I have,
Hmm.
238 podcast episodes. And then when it came
Hmm.
to launching my community, there were so
Yeah.
many things where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I went ahead and I paid the $3,000 for the platform. I had no
Hmm.
idea if I would make that money back. But what I do know is that I had $3,000 for that platform and a full year access to it. And I was damn sure going to figure out how to make some profit off that. And by
Yeah.
doing that thing that you can't undo, it
Ah,
almost just
yeah.
it drives you forward so that you can't not do the thing. And so the leadership misstep for me back then was just always shutting myself down and not starting with
Hmm.
something.
Yeah. Every shot we don't take, we miss. So starting it sometimes is just the right next step. And if you can
Yeah.
know the right next step from there, and I think being okay with something failing and a failure pointing to the next right thing, we let go of so much of that perfectionism that it has to be fully polished before we put out into the world. So doing it imperfectly is better than not doing it at all, right? If we can
Well, and we
remind
have to
ourselves of that.
remember that there's
Hmm.
always a next step. Like, unless
Right.
you're dead, there's always a next step. So, even if you take what you
Hmm.
think to be the next best step and it turns out to be a massive failure, guess what? You can
Hmm.
always take a left turn. You
Yeah.
can always pivot, you can always turn it around.
Hmm.
And when we think about what the next best step is, I think so many people think in these gigantic leaps. And it isn't always that.
Right.
Sometimes it is just sending the email. Sometimes it's just writing down your purpose. Sometimes it's how do I just figure
Hmm.
out how to capture all these ideas that are in my head when I'm on my morning walk so that I don't lose
Yes.
out on them when I'm sitting in my desk chair?
Yeah.
So it's these little tiny actions that
Yeah.
fuel. the entire growth and scalability of your business if you just lean into
Hmm.
them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautifully said. What approaches have been effective for you in transitioning from being overly involved as a leader to more of a visionary, forward-focused, long-term strategy?
Girl, you got to turn off every notification to everything you have, is what I say. Like, no Slack notifications, no text
Hmm.
notifications during the day, except for from like the important contacts, your husband, your kids, what the school, whatever.
Hmm.
But shutting down your media, right? Like your social media, your Gmail, all of that. And one of the most profound ways that I was able to do this was I don't check email anymore, ever.
Hmm. Okay.
I do
Yeah.
email. I do my
Hmm.
email. I have 3 1-hour blocks on my calendar every day where I sit down and I get into my email and I
Hmm.
delete what I don't need. The emails that I can answer in 5 minutes or less, I knock those out. And then the ones that require project work or putting something together more than 5 minutes, it goes into a
Hmm.
different folder that I then have a
Okay.
separate bucket of the day for, right? So towards the
Mm,
end of my day, I have another hour where I can go back in and then take care of those projects and prioritize them. But
right.
that was such a monumental change and shift for me because I wanted to be so prepared. I wanted to be just that person that was
Hmm.
always responsive and in the know and da da da. And now people will call me and they're like, "Did you see that email?" And I'm like, "No, it's 10 o'clock. That if it didn't come before, whatever time, like I'm not seeing it until my next email shift. And
Yeah.
it's kept my thoughts more trained. It's kept my
Hmm.
mind quieter, and it's honestly helped me manage my emotions, right? Because how many emails do we get a day that either lift you up or bring you down? And so going from
Absolutely.
checking email to doing
Yeah.
email and from doing things like
Totally.
Slack and text message and removing that external stimulation has really kept me
Mm.
more on the vision, less in the weeds.
Hmm. Oh, so powerful. Small tweaks like that too make all the difference. Yeah. Why would you say self-awareness and personal growth are essential for business leaders aiming to detach from the day-to-day and being stuck in the weeds?
Oh my God. Self-awareness. Like, have you ever just walked into a restaurant or something and so somebody is so clueless as to everyone around them and you're just like,
Totally.
what planet are they living on?
Hmm.
When you are
Absolutely.
self-aware, yeah, when you're self-aware, you know if somebody's coming in to give you a high five or if they're holding their hand up to tell you to stop. Right? If you don't have
Hmm.
self-awareness, you think they're all here high-fiving you. No, no, they wanted you to shut up a while ago. So
Mm.
having that self-awareness about yourself as a business leader, I'm a chatty
Yeah.
Cathy. I know you're shocked, but I have to remind myself to slow my volume, to, slow my pace because not everybody can
Hmm.
keep up with the level of energy that I have. And you also,
Hmm.
back to what we were talking about earlier, reading the room, right? You
Hmm.
can't just come in
Yeah.
and bombard and without assessing everyone's emotional state, where they're at, what's going on. If you run into
Yeah.
a conference room or something like that and you are so happy because you just nailed a big client, but someone's grandma died and you run into that room like just hooping and hollering, like that's going to be a bad moment. And we do
Mm.
this all the time with business in other ways. Somebody could have lost a big project or they could have had a big failure, a big flop, or a big disaster. And you as a leader come skipping in with some good news and you're totally out of touch with everything else that's going on. And so
Mm.
you have to be, and I know you said self-awareness, and what was the other word you said?
Development, personal
Oh,
development.
personal
Hmm.
development. Girl, if you're not
Yeah.
growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying,
Mm.
right? Like there
Hmm.
is too much knowledge out there in the world to
Yeah.
think you know the best way to do everything. And that's not to say that like you need to learn everything because I don't need to learn how to play mahjong. I don't care.
Hmm.
But you have to constantly up your leadership game. And especially when you look at like the world we live in today with so many generations in the workforce, what works for the boomers doesn't work for the millennials. And you have to, if you're not in one of those camps, you got to figure out what does work for them. And how does that happen?
Yeah.
Through personal growth and development. But when we were
Hmm.
talking about being a chameleon earlier,
Hmm.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that until I was doing some deep personal development work. And had I not realized that,
Right.
I probably would have just kept being a chameleon. I would have kept being really agreeable, not authentic. And if I couldn't be authentic, I couldn't step into my power and do all the things that I've done, like write the book and, launch the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and letting that guard down first to be the one who is truly authentic. I mean, the right smart individuals and intelligent people pick up on that. Self-aware individuals are aware of other self-aware individuals, right? So you letting that guard down in authenticity allows for everybody else to show up and to be authentic as well.
It does. And back when I was in my corporate days, I hit my burnout, right? Like where I just had to go off the grid for an entire week.
Hmm.
And to the point, like it was just such a low point for me that it was my husband that called
Mm,
my business partner to say, Erica's out for a week. She'll call you later, but like just do that. And number one, that was so embarrassing for me because as a very ambitious woman that is in charge of all the things, how dare you? But then number two, it was also very necessary. And when I
yeah.
came back, I was very nervous about it because obviously people knew I took a whole week off and I knew I had to have some sort of
Excuse or reason.
excuse. Yeah, excuse. But like,
Right.
what could that be? And I remember sitting there. My first gut reaction is like, okay, what is that going to be? What is that? Is somebody sick? And I was like, no, I can't blame this on somebody else. Like, this is me. And I remember saying to my team, like, I struggle with anxiety and depression. And if I do not take care of myself, like this is the worst case scenario. And I have not been open with you and I have not been sharing with all of you about the stress that I have been carrying, but that is what happened. And the next day, I had a
Hmm.
woman on my team who texted me and she said, thank you so much for sharing that. She's like, I too struggle with anxiety and depression, and sometimes I can't get out of my bed. And she's like, and I have canceled a meeting with you and lied to you about it because I didn't want you to know that. And I was like,
Hmm.
girl, and my heart hurt because, I know she didn't want to lie to me to say that, but she wanted to save face. And when she recognized it, like, hey, your boss had to take a whole week. So if you need a moment to lie in your bed, it's okay. And after
Hmm.
that, our relationship completely changed. And
Changed.
it opened
Hmm.
up, yeah, this
Yeah.
beautiful level of vulnerability between everyone on the team where
Hmm.
people could actually talk about what was going on in their lives. Right. And we talk about
Yeah.
bringing your whole self to work and being a whole person. Like that was the most magical moment because people could say,
Totally.
hey, I'm going through some stuff.
Right.
And we're
And
like,
there's no
great.
shame in that. And there's, yeah, it's
And
life.
we
Like
all see
life is
each other
still
because we
happening.
all have stuff.
Hmm. Life still happens. That's the reality. Yeah. Ah, so good. So, to conclude, what are some practical steps you suggest to entrepreneurs who are struggling to untether themselves while also maintaining alignment with their vision?
I think so in my book, I have what I call the SNAP framework, and it's all about
Ooh,
moving
okay.
through your sticky floors. Yep. And it stands for stop and take note of what's going on in the body, right? Because your body keeps score. There's a whole book on that. The body
Oh yeah.
keeps score, but all of the things
That's
that
the
are
second time today that that book has been brought up. I love that book. It's sitting on my nightstand. So,
okay,
so
girl,
good.
that's your sign to read it tonight. But
Hmm.
a lot of times we don't recognize some of the
Hmm.
sticky floors or the struggles that we're in, but your body keeps score, right? You lose sleep, you're irritable, maybe you bounce your legs up and down, maybe you're not sleeping well. Some people start to lose their hair and they get bad eczema breakouts, right? So take note of the
Hmm.
physical sensations of what's going on in your body.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
next step is to take some time and name what you're feeling, right? I'm feeling anxious because, or this feels like imposter syndrome, or I'm scared of X, because science shows that when you name
Yeah.
that emotion, you actually reduce the intensity of it. So when you do
Hmm.
those two steps, you're actually kind of creating this pattern interrupt. It stops the spiral. And then the A in SNAP is for ask and answer some deeply personal questions. Why do I think this? And is it true? Right?
Yeah.
And is it helpful? And those are some of my favorite questions because most of the time it's not a helpful thought, belief, or feeling, right?
Hmm.
And it's not true, but you need to think through those things so that you can start to process it. And then the P is pivot, right? Pivot right out of that and pick your next best action, pick your next best thought. And one of the practices that I really teach is not going from negative to positive, right? Like this toxic positivity thing where everything is rainbows and butterflies and sunshines, it doesn't sell. It does not sell, y'all, because that is not real life. But you can
Hmm.
go from negative to neutral. You can go
Hmm.
from this is horrible to it's tough now, but maybe there will be a benefit. And even that neutral place is so much better than the
Hmm.
negative place. So
Hmm.
walk through that SNAP method and then just remember to get your thinking from negative to neutral. And then you
Mm.
can talk about if you want to go from neutral to positive.
Ah, so good. If people want to check out more glass ceilings and sticky floors, is where is it sold? Where can they find it? And then
It is
how?
sold everywhere. Books are sold, Amazon,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, but Amazon's probably your easiest place.
Okay. Glass ceilings and sticky floors by Erica Rooney. And then if anyone wants to reach out to you and learn more about working with you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on my website, which is ericaandersonrooney.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Like I love
Mhm.
living over there talking to people. So message me, tell me you heard me
Yeah.
on this podcast, and we will chat.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your amazing feminine power, and for being our guest today.
Thank you.